Yo, what is good, everybody? Welcome to Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. I am your host, Jay, with my co-host, Jimmy. Thank you for checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. And while you are there, make sure you give us a rating. So rate us and review us and give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Man, give us 5 anyway.
Gifted it.
So on today's episode of Unfair Sports, we're going to dive into the Nets and their injuries, the Jazz and their injuries, the Nuggets and their sweeping, as well as asking the question, will Luka Doncic last in Dallas? As well as the typical news and great analysis that you are always looking for. Make sure you hit us up on the Unfair Fan Line, 430-901-1906, and leave us a message and give us your strongest opinions. We'd love to hear the voice of the fan, as well as check out our YouTube page, because all of these shows are on the YouTubes at unfair-sports.com. You can leave comments with all of the pissed off Titans fans that we have in the comments right now. So check us out. Hit us up on the fan line, 430-901-1906.
Jam Master Tennessee Titans fans. Oh, hey, Jay, what's going on?
What it do, baby?
How does it feel to be the most hated man in Tennessee?
Right now? Yes. Well, that's the funny thing is I'm a Vols fan, so it's kind of weird for them to even think that I should be hated because I do nothing but defend the greatness of Knoxville, but they are in Nashville, so that's like a 5 to 6 hour drive difference. So I totally get why we're completely disconnected, and I kind of actually like the fact that they hate me because I'm going to be real with everybody that's listening right now on the pod. This won't be on the video, but this is on the pod. And I want everybody to understand. I'm not going to lie to y'all about my thoughts and feelings about players and teams. It's nothing personal. It's just the one thing I don't believe any of them on there, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I think there's the one thing about these Titans fans that have been going batshit crazy in my comments on that video is they do not realize how difficult it is to play the position of quarterback in the NFL, nor do they understand the difficulties of playing in the NFL, period. There's a reason why there's only 1% of everybody makes it there. There's a reason why the top 1% of that 1% are the great ones. There are reasons for this, and I hate the fact that no one wants to understand and acknowledge that sometimes them's the breaks.
Okay, so for those who want to see the video we're talking about that has caused such outrage in Tennessee, as well as to read the comments, where can they go to see that?
Go to our YouTube page. It's going to be unfair-sports.com. Just click on YouTube, and the video is does Julio Jones make the Titans a contender? And not one point in there that I say that they were not contenders. I'm just going to say that right now. But I'm going to go ahead and start off with this.
All right.
I just burnt through the first 4 or 5 minutes of the show talking about them. But let's start off with this. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm not going to lie to you all. I'm not going to lie to you all as fans. I'm not going to lie to you. Or am I going to just give BS analysis or statements around what's going on? I'm not going to throw out clickbait. I'm not going to throw out super hot takes like that. I typically try to be as thoughtful and as pensive as possible when I come out with stuff. And in a situation like today, I could totally sit here and as me and Jimmy were texting back and forth earlier, I could just be rubbing on myself, just excited and just celebrating everything that I said coming to fruition, even though I really do feel bad that it did happen. And this is what I'm talking about. I made the proclamation over the last 3 months that the Brooklyn Nets would not make it out the second round. And there's one reason why. There's only one reason why. I said if this doesn't happen, they will go. But this one thing I expect to happen, unfortunately, because of the way the year's going on, is I don't know who's going to play throughout the entire series. I had no clue who was going to make it. I know nobody was safe because we've seen so many anomaly injuries this year that I just felt like this team coming together as a super team, that the basketball guys were going to reward the people that hate super teams and take this team out. Sure enough, game 5, which is tomorrow, hence the day of you watching this, because this comes out Tuesday morning, they're going to be without 2 key players. They will be out James Harden and now Kyrie Irving after that majorly disgusting ankle injury. And if you go down the list, StatMuse put out a tweet, as well as my guy Zach Noble over at Noble and Roosh at Ball's Life. They put out this tweet about injuries in the playoffs. Let me read the names to you real quick, and I'm going to ask a question. We got Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Jamal Murray, Mike Conley, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Joel Embiid, and our boy LeBron James. So now, I have to ask the question to you, Jimmy. Is it fair or unfair to say that the Brooklyn Nets will not make it out of the second round this year?
I think it's unfair because they still do at least have 2 of the next 3 games at home. It's a best of 3 series. And in a best of 3 series, if you have the home court, you can't allow yourself to feel like you're in serious trouble. So they do have that going for them. Yes, you have injuries to your second and third best player. That is something that, to my memory, I can't think of a superstar who, as far as getting out of the second round, I'm not sure, but I've not ever seen a superstar win a championship being down their number 2 and their number 3. Mm-hmm. Kyrie Irving, because he heals slow, because he has an injury history, and because this was a legitimate sprained ankle where all of his weight after a jump came down on that ankle sideways. That's at least a 3 to 4 week injury, meaning he's not coming back for the playoffs. James Harden, hamstring re-aggravation. We don't know when he's going to be back. They can't allow him to come back unless he's 100%, or else next time it could be even worse. So the Nets can't allow themselves to panic. Here's what they have to do. They have to say, okay, we're in a tough spot. This is bad. The Bucks are confident. They've won the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. So here's what we have going for us. Not only do we have 2 of the next 3 at home, but that's basically all we have. So here's what we're going to rely on.
That's it, guys. There we go.
Here's what we're going to rely on. We're going to need Joe Harris to be Klay Thompson. We're going to need Blake Griffin to be we're going to need him to be Draymond Green. And if I'm Steve Nash, I promise you, Blake, I will actually play you in the second half. And Bruce Brown, since you wanted the last second shot, what was that, 2 games ago? Well, now, congratulations. You get all of Kyrie Irving's shots. Let's see if you can really hit them. They need them to play well at home. You don't have to play well in Milwaukee because you're not going to. They need to play well in Game 5 to complement KD, who is definitely going to have over 30 points, and they need to play well in the Game 7 for them to have a chance to come out of the second round. So it's unfair to say they won't get out of it, but this is obviously troubling, and this definitely, no pun intended, cripples their chances to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh, no. And so you say that it's unfair to state that. Of course, moi, the one that made the proclamation from jump, sees it as very much fair to say that, because I've told you all for the last couple of months that they would not make it that second round. And back to my opening statement. I wish no ill will on this team. Right. I actually wanted to see if the greatest offense in NBA history could make it through the playoffs together and actually, based upon rating, and actually make it happen, win a championship with just offense. We've never seen that before. We've never seen a team win a championship with just offense. People may want to say that Golden State has done that before, but if you look back at those Golden State teams, they were top 5 ranked defense. Every year they won their chips. Yeah. They were a strong defensive team, and that was one thing Steve Kerr said when he came in that Mark Jackson did a phenomenal job of. He set them up beautifully on defense. I didn't have to do anything. They already knew defense. They were prepared for it, and then Draymond Green, as cerebral as he is at that position, kept that defense just a churning. All they had to do on offense was learn how to move and keep going. With this team now, it's Kevin Durant and literally the Pips. I enjoy Blake Griffin's resurgence. It looks like he's actually healthy in comparison to what he's been the last 10 years from the Clippers days to now. Blake Griffin ain't the same Blake Griffin back in the day. He ain't it. No. And he doesn't even look like he's it. He looks like he's getting more healthy, but the problem is he's on the wrong side of 30. And that does not end well for a player like of his caliber, who was mainly all athleticism and a little bit of finesse. Brooklyn is in trouble. We've seen this story before. We've seen Kevin, even though he was younger, we've seen Kevin have to go out there after losing his number 2. When Russell Westbrook got his meniscus torn because Patrick Beverley decided to do things Patrick Beverley does. Right. Kevin had to run that team by himself, basically. It was him and a bunch of role players whose job were to just step in. Reggie Jackson had some solid games there. He was young as well. But they end up losing to Memphis 4-1, which led Memphis to its only conference finals appearance. So I don't see Kevin Durant being able to do that by himself. And this is the reason why I don't see Kevin Durant doing it by himself, because Kevin Durant was also hurt most of this season. So it's just about time for Kevin Durant to have an injury, just like the rest of them. Maybe like a little hamstring pull or something that's not career ending, but something that will basically pull him out of game 6 and 7, which is perfectly what Milwaukee wants.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the last time Kevin Durant was in this position where he was in the playoffs without his number 2. And, I mean, it's been a pretty phenomenal career when you think about it, that throughout the majority of his playoff runs, he hasn't had to encounter this type of occurrence.
Right.
But yesterday in the game, what I was looking for in that second half was to see what kind of Kevin Durant we were going to see. And in that second half, he couldn't take over the game.
Nope.
With the entire Milwaukee Bucks defense focused on him, he couldn't take over the game, or at least the half in its entirety. He would take over in 3 to 4 minute spurts. He did that several times. I think one was in the fourth quarter. There was one sequence where he came down and hit like 4 buckets in a row, 4 middies. So he can do that, but that's not going to be enough to beat this team. So if I see that, and if I'm the Nets, that is something that does concern me. But either way, in order for him to at least score I said he's going to need to score over 30, or he is going to score over 30. He is, but he's going to need to score 40 to 50 in each of these final 3 games in order for this team to win, even if he does get significant contributions from the other 3 players that I mentioned. So I guess essentially that's what they're going to have to do in order to keep pace with Milwaukee, with the Bucks team who now is very relaxed because they've won 2 in a row, and they're very confident because there's a star player that they're not going to have to worry about for the rest of the series. Now, of course, things could pivot somewhat if they were to get James Harden back, but I don't think that they will. Just because of how long he was out with the hamstring the first time, and now he tweaks it, and he's been out at least a couple of weeks as well, right?
Yep.
So Kevin Durant, again, we've said this on the show, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, that he has the greatest offensive skill set, literally no weaknesses that we've ever seen. We are going to find out just how much of an all-time great player Kevin Durant truly is.
We are.
Because this is his moment. This is the time where he doesn't want to have to do this, but he's going to have to summon everything that he's got. For them to win this series, it's going to take every single thing Kevin Durant has. He's not going to have anything left for the swim back to shore, meaning that whether it's the 76ers most likely that they face, without these 2, they're not going to be able to win that series. But it's going to take everything he's got to get them out of this. I think he can, but they've got to hold down home court, essentially.
Let's look at it. So Emmanuel Acho from Speak for Yourself and Fox Sports, great analysis. This is what he pointed out. For those wondering, Kevin Durant, the best player in the world, went 6 for 19 from the field, including 0 for 6 from 3 after Kyrie left from injury. Now, the injury was fresh. So this statement that he's making, it's factual, but it's minus a little context. That entire defense was hawking Kevin. And PJ Tucker, you mentioned it. PJ Tucker really is the X factor in the series, the way he's defending KD. Yeah. And everyone's mad at the fact that PJ Tucker is being physical in the playoffs. That's what happens in the playoffs. The playoffs are when teams are super physical. And so, as you ask the question, what team have we ever seen lose their number 2 and still be able to win a championship? Nobody really, but we've had teams that had injuries that were able to do stuff but not go that far. Like LeBron losing Kevin Love, which was his 3 in the first round. Kelly Olynyk yanked his shoulder out of place. And then Kyrie hurt his knee game 1 of the finals, which basically eliminated him in 2015. That's really one that you can truly think of that was very impactful. Then you can go with even
I got one for you.
The Celtics losing Kendrick Perkins. As much as we don't want to talk about how good Kendrick Perkins is, when the Celtics lost Kendrick Perkins going up against the Lakers in the finals, Kendrick was a big piece to help against Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum. Like, that's how they won the championship, was having him there. He wasn't a 2 or 3. He was more of a role player, but that was one of those key role players you needed. And the last one, and I'm going to talk about him on the other side and later on in the show. But Zeke, Isaiah Thomas, remember when he messed his ankle up against the Lakers in the finals? Came back on one leg and scored 25 points. We ain't getting Kyrie doing that. I just say that.
Well, I could add one to what you were just talking about. What about a couple of years ago with the Warriors losing Klay Thompson and losing Kevin Durant? So at the time, you had Steph Curry, who was the number 2, we'll say, because Kevin Durant was still a better offensive player than him.
Right.
So you lose your number 1, you lose your number 3, and they all end the same way. Now, I can't remember how the Zeke finals went.
The Lakers
the rest of them lost. Okay, so they all lose. You lose. That's the point.
Right.
When you lose your number 2 and your number 3.
You know, it happens.
Yes.
That's just kind of the way the world.
I mean, I don't know. Do you think Kevin Durant? I know you don't think Kevin Durant can do it under these circumstances because this is what you have been predicting. But do you think that he is superstar enough and great enough to be able to lift them? Is there a chance he can lift them out of the second round himself?
Kevin
Durant.
No. Zero. That team, the team that they're going against is a little too prepared for the Brooklyn Nets. Right. Like, Drew Holiday's been having a really bad series. He hasn't really played as well as
he has.
Offensively. Yeah. He hasn't played as good as we hoped him to play, but guess what? He's going to start showing out now because who's going to defend him? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, who's truly going to stop them on that team right now without having to worry about Giannis or even Chris Middleton? So, honestly, I don't see Kevin doing it. I really hope the series remains competitive. I feel bad that this team is out like this, but you know what? It happens. Mm-hmm. So, let's see what happens next. What we do every Monday here on Unfair Sports. Jimmy's gonna give us the news.
And now Jimmy has the news.
Thank you, Wendy. All right, let's play a little game, Jay. I want you to pretend to be Damian Lillard, okay?
Uh-oh.
All right, I'm the GM. All right, hey, Dame, how you doing? Good to see you. So Jason Kidd doesn't want to coach here. He wouldn't tell us why, but he told everybody that he doesn't want to coach here. But we got your backup. Mike D'Antoni.
Oh, God.
How do you feel about that, Dame?
That's actually an awful selection. I don't see why we keep giving Mike D'Antoni these head coaching jobs. At this point, everyone's basically figured this man out. Now, he'd be perfect in Portland, but guess what? They ain't going to win nothing.
I agree. I think that, Mike D'Antoni is kind of like a great offensive coordinator who shouldn't be a head coach, because all of his teams tend to underachieve for that reason. So his lane is offensive coordination, so he does need to stay in Brooklyn. I feel bad for Dame because, outside of Chauncey Billups, I don't see anybody else that he'd want to play for. And the effects of this could reverberate throughout whether or not he decides to join the I'm upset, I've done all I can do here, trade me bus. And then that creates a whole host of problems for Portland. Now, he hasn't suggested he's going to do that, but we're in the age of that, Jay.
Yeah, it's true, but he can't go nowhere. What else we got?
He can't go anywhere. Everybody can go somewhere. Come on, man. I know where he'd want to go. The NBA, sticking with the NBA plans to start the 21-22 season on time this year in mid-October, which would be about 3 months from that to the end of the NBA Finals. So you have about a 3-month layoff. Is this a good idea for the NBA to start their season in mid-October?
Have you seen the season so far?
I have.
You saw me read that list off of players that have been hurt?
I did.
Guess what's going to happen?
Same thing.
Whoever makes it to the finals, they're going to be hurt going to next season. 3 months is not enough time. Mm-hmm. This is a very bad idea. Mm-hmm. That one extra month, people don't understand the difference that is in the human body. The human body has limits, and what we're doing is pushing it. And I mentioned this on Twitter not too long ago that we're definitely not going to get back to normal until 2022, 2023.
I would say at least mid-November, because a nice 4-month layoff, especially for the teams who do advance to the deeper rounds of the playoffs, I think that's your floor. Obviously, your ceiling would be another December start again with reduced games for this very reason, and because that's just a part of what makes December great. Them starting around the time that they did last year was fantastic, seemed to work fine, even though I guess it didn't fix the injury problem.
And Jimmy, remember this, the Olympics is also going on this summer, and so there'll be players that be playing in that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so up next, Jay, so wide receiver, who many of you haven't heard of, his name is Jamison Crowder. He's a wide receiver for the Jets, agreed to take a pay cut so that he could remain a member of the New York Jets.
Word?
Would you take less money to remain a New York Jet?
Hell no. Okay. But, yeah, I don't know. What?
Give me 3 teams that you would just refuse to take less money from in order to stay in that organization.
3 teams. All right, we're going to say the New York Jets, the Tennessee Titans, and the Houston Texans.
Would you? I would probably add.
No, I'm just playing Titans fans. I would totally.
Let's take out the Titans. Let's put in the Detroit Lions.
I agree.
You agree? All right. Last.
Cold.
How about the Cincinnati Bengals? Well, see, I mean, now you have a legitimate quarterback, or someone who we think could be a legitimate quarterback.
Same thing with the Jets. I mean, you don't know what
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, young boy's going to do, but I don't know. All right, what's last?
All right, so lastly, Jay, this is actually from you. You had something on Stephon Gilmore that I haven't picked up.
So it looks like Stephon Gilmore has not made it to mandatory minicamp with the Patriots because he is in a dispute with his contract. He's going to make $7.1 million this season, and he wants a new contract, which he was Defensive Player of the Year. He's done a lot of great things for the team, and now that he's out, it looks like he's being recruited by Jalen Ramsey to come to the Rams. Jalen's out there asking him, what's good, my dude? What's good, bro? He's trying to find a way to get Stephon Gilmore to get either out of his contract or get traded to the Rams. And so I think the Patriots need to figure this out because Stephon Gilmore, even though he was kind of blah last year was blah in general. You want him back.
Now, I think if this were last year, he would have already been traded, but apparently we've seen a change in Bill Belichick willing to spend all this money in free agency in order to, in a sense, as a reaction to Tom Brady, the former quarterback, the GOAT, winning the championship this year. So at first I was thinking, well, they don't deal with this type of thing very well or at all. They just get rid of you, especially sooner rather than later.
Right.
But I think that since we're seeing new things from the Patriots and there is this pressure to win, I think they will find a way to work this out. And he, unfortunately, will remain a member of the Patriots because I would absolutely hate and love to see him as a member of the Rams. Hate it because I'm a 49ers fan. Love it because that would be a fantastic duo with Aaron Donald in the middle.
Is that it?
That's it. It's news.
And that was Jimmy with the news.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, so with that, Jimmy, coming out of that commercial and news, Belichick does spend. He only spends on certain people, certain positions. So that this summertime stuff, and I'll have to post a link to the video where I talked about that. This ain't abnormal for Belichick. It's just abnormal that he actually had money because that dude usually always got money tied into something. Right. He's that guy. Right. But anyway, so next up, Jimmy, what's going on?
Next, let's stick with the NBA playoffs, Jay. Let's go out west where we had some interesting games over the weekend, starting with the Clippers-Jazz series, who played Saturday night. So with the Clippers facing an 0-3 deficit for the second time this playoffs, found a way to not only beat the Utah Jazz, but beat them handedly 132-106. Definitely fantastic performance by both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who each eclipsed 30 points. And in this game also, you had, we could say, an aggravation of the injury to star player for the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, who was hobbling at the end of the game, couldn't finish the game at all. He says he's going to be good for Game 4, which will be tonight. So we'll know the outcome of that by the time you all hear this show. But with Donovan Mitchell already hobbling, on top of having to carry that franchise, or because of he's having to carry that franchise, the Jazz will not make it out of the second round. Is it fair or unfair to say that?
I think it's fair to say right now, unfortunately. This is why you had Donovan Mitchell leave the game with that injury, and then you've got, right now, we have Mike Conley, who is officially out of this game. So those that, when you hear this tomorrow, when you hear this, the game will already be passed, but it'll be out. So it looks like this is going to be 2-2, and we don't know what Donovan Mitchell looks like. And this is where my assessment comes from. This is that when he got hurt again and left, if you watch the video, there really wasn't anything there that indicated he hurt himself. But he had stated that it was over time he was being bothered by it, which I think is also similar to what we were seeing with LeBron with the Lakers. When he hurt his injury and he was saying he wasn't going to be 100% probably for the rest of his career, you could see as the game went on longer that it looked like he was more so favoring that ankle and that injury. And now we're seeing a lot more players deal with these similar injuries because of them having so few time off. Think about it. The Miami Heat are out quick. The Lakers are out quick. Basically, all the teams that made it deep into the playoffs are the only ones actually left. Well, the ones that didn't make it deep are the ones left. The Nets got eliminated first round last year. They're still playing. Milwaukee got knocked out second round last year. They looked out and played Miami, so they helped them get through. They're still going. Philly was swept in the first round last year.
The Suns didn't make it.
Suns didn't make it, even though they went 8-0 in the bubble. Denver made it to the conference finals. They got eliminated second round pretty easily. The Jazz got eliminated. Was they first round or second round? I think they were first round.
Yeah, because they had a 3-1 lead over Denver.
Yep, Denver knocked them out last year. So,
Right.
boom.
Right.
So, you can tell that the teams that were eliminated early are the ones that had the extra rest, the extra month of rest. They're the ones that are actually going a lot deeper in the playoffs. So, for Utah, having two guys that are hobbling like this, going against a Clippers team that's actually healthy, shockingly, this might be the first time in team history the Clippers make it out. And you might be right, Jimmy.
I might be, yeah. I agree. It is fair to say that they won't make it out of the second round. They are in trouble. Obviously, I was going to say that before because that was my prediction. But with this Donovan Mitchell injury, I don't think he's going to make it through Game 4. I don't think they're going to win Game 4, and I think the Clippers have completely taken control of this series.
Hate it.
You can tell they look the way. They don't look like a fully formed Clippers team, the kind that we thought we were going to see last year, but they're looking better and better. They're looking more efficient. They're looking like they actually have some sort of an identity, and they're doing something different. They're actually letting PG play PG a little bit more, and he's showing that he can actually do that.
Yeah.
And you're right. In a season like this, in the playoffs like this, what we've already seen, even more so than in seasons past, where it is a war of attrition. Whoever has their best players, the healthiest, is usually who wins. The Clippers might actually be the healthiest team still left in the playoffs outside of the Suns, which I would discount them somewhat.
In the West, yeah.
Yeah, because Chris Paul is Chris Paul, and because that shoulder injury could pop up again. Joel Embiid, meniscus, etc. So the Clips being the healthier team, the healthiest team, on top of not having a player who's having to feel like they have to carry this entire team, is what's going to propel them past them, because now they can see the Jazz for what they are. The Jazz, solid team, fluid on offense, really good on defense, but they only have one guy who can create for themselves, and that guy has a bum ankle.
That is true.
So that's what the series essentially comes down to. So I don't think the Jazz are going to win another game in this series.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I fear. I want the Jazz. I really want the Jazz to win this series so they can go ahead and just lose to the Suns in the conference finals, and we get the Phoenix Suns win the championship.
Why would you want that? Why would you not want to see the Clips and the Suns?
No, I want to see the Suns play the Jazz. I'm hoping that we get another fan similar to the Nuggets fan that got taken out by the Suns fan that told everybody Suns in 4. You saw that video, right?
I did not see that
Okay, so
video.
there was a fight during the Suns and Nuggets game in Denver. Suns fan was down there. There was two Nuggets fans just running their mouths, talking noise, and then one of the Nuggets fans tried to punch the dude. He missed him. Guy grabbed him. Looked like a hockey player.
Yeah.
Like he's played hockey in his past. Basically, looked like he was pulling the shirt over the dude's head, held him down, was railing on him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, say something. And this boy tried to come over. Boy missed. He swung at the boy, hit him, knocked him back, and he kept swinging at him, and they finally got him to break up. The dude was like, Suns in 4. And because he did that Suns in 4, I'm going to make that into a T-shirt. And I'm sold on that. I want to see that because I know that'll happen with a Jazz fan. There's some rowdy Jazz fans. Enough of them drink enough. We hear about the stories of the things they do. I would love to see that fan go to Utah and start a ruckus out of it. There won't be no ruckus at Clippers fans.
So outside of wanting that,
I want the violence. I want the fan violence.
Outside of wanting that, you see the Clippers now going to the Western Conference Finals.
Unfortunately, yes. Because I and it's another thing. Clippers, no shade to y'all, but I really enjoy you guys losing and constantly falling apart. I do. I actually enjoy teams that do that because it just warms my heart when they do the things, when they become like that thing. We do the clippering thing. We got the falconing thing. When they do that, when they become that, when that becomes them.
The world sort of rotates on its axis appropriately when the things that always happen end up happening.
Exactly. And I was in hopes, in my dreams, that would happen to them, and I could just continue to laugh and say, you guys did what we expect you to do. But right now, it looks like the Clippers aren't. They look like they have a chance to do it. Now, the question is, as you mentioned, can Paul George continue to produce what playoff P is doing right now?
Yeah.
We laugh at him. We call him Pandemic P, rightfully so. All the jokes can fly because he gave himself this nickname, and he hasn't really performed like he should. But don't get it twisted. Paul George is a really good player. Like, Paul George is probably one of the top 25 players in this league.
He is.
He can. There's arguments in that range, but dude, when he's on, especially at his height. He can shoot. He can dribble. He can run point guard. He can do all of that stuff. He can defend. We've seen him defend at high levels. So as much as we like to joke and laugh about Paul George, which I thoroughly enjoy those still, we we can't deny how great the dude is whenever he is playing. He was an MVP candidate and Defensive Player of the Year candidate before he hurt himself when he was playing with Westbrook. Mm-hmm. So we know he can do it. We know he's capable of it. The problem is he just doesn't show up when he needs to. As of right now, it looks like he's actually showing up.
And, in seeing this too, it's really helped me to understand the importance of having a shot creator. Because you can have, in the Jazz you can have, fantastic sets that get you the types of options on offense that you want. You're going to have just fantastic play designs. Yep. But the problem in a 7-game series is they've seen your best moves by about game 3.
Yep.
And then after that, when your sets won't work and your plays won't work, you have to have 2 guys who can go and get a bucket on their own.
It's all about ISO at that point. That's when ISO is the most important, which I know we hate talking about it. We love the beautiful flow of basketball. That's when ISO wins, unless you've got shooters like Golden State and shooters like San Antonio used to have. If you don't have a team full of just shooters who can who can knock down a bucket anytime, you need that guy that can get a bucket, and most teams in this league do not have that.
Mm-hmm. So by the time you hear this show, it will be tied to the Clips in another double-digit victory on Monday night.
And so far, Jimmy will be continuing his push for the Clippers to win said championship.
I'm not worried about him.
His flowers are coming, he thinks, and there's no chance your flowers are coming.
All right, so Jay, sticking with the Western Conference playoffs, we had, one series continues and one series ended last night, Sunday night, with the Phoenix Suns completing the sweep of the Denver Nuggets in a 125-118 victory in Denver, ending that series. You had 37 points on 14 of 19 shooting from Chris Paul. You had 34 points and 11 rebounds from Devin Booker in order to complete the sweep, a game that was not without its controversy. We'll get to that in a second. But so with the Phoenix Suns, Jay, let's look at their history over the last year. 8-0 in the bubble, number 2 seed in the West, take out LeBron and AD, sweep the MVP and the Nuggets. How far can this Suns team really go?
This team going to championship, and I am beyond floored at how well Chris Paul. Now, so this is the thing. Chris Paul has proven that he can go places and win games and win where we don't think he could win. Hell, he's in Oklahoma City last year, and that team was supposed to be a lottery team that no one's over-under had them going into the playoffs. They took them to the playoffs, and they went to Game 7 on a last-minute shot is the only reason why. A block by James Harden that we've never would have said we'd have expected. If he didn't block that shot, the Houston Rockets might have gotten eliminated in the first round. And so because of that, we got to give Chris Paul his flowers. Now, as we talk about giving flowers, I got to say this real quick.
Okay.
Pull this down real quick. I would like everyone to stop and breathe and think before you speak. Chris Paul is not the best point guard in NBA history. Chris Paul is top 5 in history. Chris Paul is not better than Magic Johnson, nor is he better than Isaiah Thomas. Zeke, the original. I don't know why people feel like they need to say this. I don't understand why people must slander Zeke, even though people did not like Zeke. Mm-hmm. We talked about this earlier in the show. Zeke had a effed up ankle to where he could barely put weight on it, still dropped 25 in the NBA Finals. Zeke was the leader of that Bad Boys Pistons team and won 2 championships back-to-back. His team going back-to-back was one of 3 teams in NBA history to go back-to-back at the time. The Celtics with Bill Russell and then the Lakers with Magic. They're the only ones that at that time had gone back-to-back. This was before Jordan goes back-to-back and before the Lakers did it again. And the Heat. He did that. We've got to stop trying to say that Chris Paul's better than this man. Chris Paul's fantastic. I told you, top 3. He's my number 3. I think I put him above Stockton. I put Stockton behind him, and then I put number 5, Steph. But he is not better than Zeke. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, that people are actually saying this.
Okay, so let me digress for a second. You will put Chris Paul ahead of Steph Curry?
As a point guard, yes.
No, you say as a point guard. What do you mean?
Greatest point guard.
In the purest sense of being a point guard?
Greatest point guard to play the game, yes. I think Steph is the greatest shooter to play the game. I don't see Steph as a full-fledged point guard, though.
See, I want to fight you on that, but the thing about Steph Curry is he doesn't run that offense. If he ran the offense, he could very well retire as the greatest point guard ever. He's like
that's an argument.
He's like de facto point guard, like point guard in name.
He's a point guard in position, basically, only because of your height.
But he's still great. I would still put him I still put him ahead of Chris Paul in my own rankings. Because I thought about this last night. I had to think about this because you're seeing an all-time performance.
Oh, my God,
game from
yes.
Chris Paul, who's like 44 years old.
And it's funny because, of course, Stat News put some more good stuff out there about this. Chris Paul went vegan.
Yes.
So Chris Paul was averaging career lows in 2018-19. His season before bubble, 15 points per game, 17 points in the playoffs, and he wasn't very good in the splits. He went vegan, averaging 17, 49, 38, 92%. Close to a 50-40-90, 18 in the playoffs, 50, 39, 90 in the playoffs. He led Oklahoma City to the playoffs, and he's leading the Suns right now to the Western Conference Finals. Now, that's the other thing that people understand. I did a video and talked about this last week during my solo on Chris Paul coming for that MVP chain, which he was snatching from Jokic. Which you got to talk about Jokic and the way he quit on his team a little bit in just a minute. But Chris Paul, you can tell he took that personally. And I'll make sure to link it in this video, the video version of this, to me talking about that. But he took it personally. You can tell. And so he went out there and showed out in this series. This series is when he showed out. But they're a balanced team. Devin Booker is what won them the Lakers series because Chris Paul had a bum shoulder. And then, of course, injuries helps out a lot too. But,
you know, I'm glad you bring that up because their starting – I was thinking about this. You're right. Their starting five has everything. You have a guy in the middle who's competent, who can get you buckets, and who can rebound the ball. You have Devin Booker, a quintessential shooting guard. You have a great point guard in Chris Paul.
Who can also play point, played point most of his career because
he had to.
Yep.
And you have Mikal Bridges, who's very athletic. And then you have a guy, Jamison Crowder, who he's a 3-and-D guy, so he doesn't play like a traditional 4, I guess, but he's so tough and so physical. He's like P.J. Tucker. As a matter of fact, if I had a choice of any two NBA players to fight, it would be I'd want to see Jay Crowder and P.J. Tucker. I would pay $75 pay-per-view to watch those two fight because that's what kind of player he is.
I made a joke on Twitter about this, and it actually went a little viral. People actually really thought it was good.
Yep.
Said Jay Crowder is that one kid that's in the neighborhood that comes and plays, but nobody knows where he lives. He just be around. Right. He does look like somebody else said, I think it was Joe Anderson had said this. He had said that Jay Crowder plays the way he looks.
Yeah, he does.
He does. It's just something about him. He's got that scrappiness, that griminess to his game, even though he's really not a grimy person. He doesn't actually come across as that. But he looks like it with the dreads and everything. He just looks like some random kid that's always in the neighborhood, which I appreciate.
Going back a second. How far? Because I want to talk about this too. How far the Suns can really go? I agree with you. I think they can go to the finals. I think they can win the finals. I don't think that they will, but I think that they can because you look at it this way. All right, you look at the landscape. You're the Suns. You say, are we playing better than who's left? So you look at the Clippers. I would say barely. Yes, they're playing better than the Clippers, even though the Clippers have been down 0-2 each round this playoffs.
Yep.
Are we playing better than the Jazz? Clearly. Are we playing better than the Sixers? I would say yes. Better than the Hawks? Yes. Better than the Nets or what the Nets are about to start playing like?
Yes.
And better than the Bucks?
I shrug.
I would say barely yes. So then from there, you project who you're most likely to meet. So I say you project to meet the Clippers in the Western Conference playoffs. We just said that you're playing better than them, so you got to feel confident about that. Or in the East, most likely the Bucks or the Nets. Whoever wins that series is probably going to come out of the East, and you feel like you're playing better than them. So the conclusion is, yes, we can win the finals. I never thought I'd hear myself say that about a Phoenix Suns team, but having a player like Chris Paul, who honestly probably was the MVP of this season, I don't know exactly how Jokic stole the narrative. I think primarily is because he played every game this season, which is phenomenal when you have guys load managing all over the place. But yes, I agree with you. Phoenix can win the finals.
Let's go ahead.
That is amazing to say.
It is, and I'm glad that they have the opportunity of doing something that Charles Barkley could not do when he was down there in those great teams with him and Thunder, Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson, etc., so on and so forth.
Back to you, Ernie.
Done. Let's talk about the MVP and the way he quit on his team. So, twofold. One, Jokic deserved that MVP, period. This is the narrative that he stole. And I mentioned this on that same video about Chris Paul going into it.
Right.
On the pod. Jokic was shooting at 56 from the field, 38 from 3, 86 from the line, while averaging 26, 10, and 8, almost 9. The dude almost averaged a triple-double while shooting at splits that I don't think we've ever seen from a big man. A big man that shot an average of 3.5 threes per game. So the dude, it wasn't him shooting one every once in a while. The dude was averaging 3 threes a game. Jokic deserved that MVP because as I mentioned, we talked about this before, and this is the way that like a LeBron or any of these players that won an MVP trophy, this is how you win it. You got to do it in one of 4 ways. It's all about narrative. It's all about the story. Yeah. You have to be the best player, bona fide best player on the most dominant team in the season. That's one. Mm-hmm. That's how Giannis won his. Okay. His team was the most dominant, so he was the best player on the most dominant team. Give us a historical feat. Something that we've never seen before. Russell Westbrook's triple-doubles. Mm-hmm. James Harden averaging 40 points over like a 15-point run. Mm-hmm. Jokic putting up splits we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. You got to have something like that. Mm-hmm. And then outside of that, you just got to be great. You got to be great in general. So if you want to win MVP, you got to do something that you've never done before as well. That's your third one. You got to do something you've never done before. Mm-hmm. And then outside of that, you've got to break a historical record. So that's where your Westbrook triple-double piece comes in for the most part. But historical feat, so you got to either be the best player on the most dominant team, historical feat, do something you've never done before that just supplants what you've ever done before, or you got to break some sort of a record. Chris Paul has never done that for anything. If Chris Paul had averaged 20 assists this season, he'd been MVP. Mm-hmm. That would have been it, because that's the record.
Historical feat. Taking the Phoenix Suns to a number 2 seed in the West, that's not historical enough.
I mean, Charles Barkley's done that before. What are you talking
like 30 years ago?
And it's happened before. I think the Suns were 1 seed with Steve Nash.
Wait, but what were they? But they
lost to the Lakers
the season before that. I mean, those teams were always good with D'Antoni, Amari, and Steve Nash. Those teams were always good. This team couldn't get to the playoffs last season, so you go from no playoffs to a number 2 seed, and you really only add one person. That's not historical?
No. It's not. That's not something I can give them on that. Unfortunately, it's one of those you can't give to them. I mean, they've had some, like I said, they've had some seasons. Mm-hmm. I mean, they finished in a few occasions at number 2 or 1.
Rarely do we get the opportunity to see this. Well, I'll say rarely, but I'll say not often, to see the guy who won the MVP versus the guy who did win the MVP and the guy who deserved to win the MVP. Essentially swept the guy who did win the MVP. I think that's narrative enough in hindsight that the voters know they got it wrong and that it should have been Chris Paul.
So what you're saying to me is that Hakeem Olajuwon should have won MVP whenever David Robinson won it the year after him.
I have to look at his stats.
Numbers wise?
Possibly.
David Robinson had way better numbers.
That's a tough spot because David Robinson was my favorite center growing up.
David Robinson had way better numbers in both years. Mm-hmm. That even though the year that Olajuwon won the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. But my point, Olajuwon came back, took it personally as well. Yeah, knocked the Spurs out, and that was the year they won a championship as a lowly 6th seed.
So they really went head to head. Two centers, 2 great centers.
Oh yes. I mean, what I'm saying here is Jokic deserves it. But let's talk about Jokic and him quitting on his team. How did you get yourself ejected? Out of frustration.
He didn't quit on his team.
That was a quitter move. That was 100% quitter move.
Did you hear his explanation? Do you hear his explanation for it? What did he say? He said that essentially he was trying to do something to turn the momentum of the game, to spark the team. We've seen this before. Now, he knew it was an aggressive move. He knew it would piss the Suns off, but that's what he wanted, to get that energy and that grit back into his team. Hell, you're facing elimination on your own home court. That's what he was trying to do. The problem is he didn't realize how long his arms were.
Or how big heavy his hands is.
Physically, and I was going to add this to what you said earlier, doing all the things you said he did while having no athleticism whatsoever. So therefore, when you try to actually swipe at the ball aggressively and you end up hitting somebody in the nose, that just means that you have no athleticism whatsoever.
Coordination, yeah.
Now, it's questionable as to whether or not he should have been ejected anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's the one thing for me that bothered me, is that they actually ejected the man. That didn't feel like an ejectable offense.
Yeah.
But it definitely was a flagrant one, and this is the reason why I said that. A lot of people, especially like when him and Devin Booker got in each other's face and everything, everybody's like, oh, yeah, Devin Booker, man, blah, 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 blah. Hey, man, I don't know if y'all understand what it's like in these other countries, the way that they live, especially. There was a story that I guess Jokic had mentioned about what his brothers did to him as a kid. His brothers held him down and threw knives at his head. because he did something to them. Name me somewhere where you know folks be doing stuff like that. Name me also countries that are used to bombs blowing up around them because their country's always in a civil war. Mm-hmm. The ghettos in other countries ain't the same as the hoods here. Mm-hmm. In some places it can be bad here, but in other countries they can be just as bad too. Don't think it's just all roses and stuff. Like, those people don't scrap it out to try to survive.
So in other words, that whole thing was not going to go the way Devin Booker thought it was going to go.
Exactly. I think his dad is like 6'10" as well, and his brothers are also in that range. Like, his brothers are huge. Mm-hmm. I don't think I want it with somebody like that. It's no different than like Steven Adams whenever people talk noise to him. Oh, no. And like, what did he say to Jonas Valanciunas one time? He was talking noise and trying to get him riled up, and Steven Adams looked at him and said, "You eat steak with a fork and knife. I eat steak with my hands." Valanciunas said nothing to him for the rest of the game. Period. You have to understand. Hell, LeBron said that dude's probably the strongest person he's ever met.
Oh, he is.
And that's my point. When it comes to a player like Jokic, you got to be careful when they come from the scrappiness and they got like 9 and 10 siblings and they all work on the farm together. Mm-hmm. That country strong ain't only in America. Mm-hmm. So just don't get it twisted. Some of them people had to fight to get a plate in their own house, right? Because siblings would snatch their cornbread. Mm-hmm. It ain't something that you want to play with. So, not saying that Devin Booker couldn't hold his own. Devin Booker's also a little bit shorter than Jokic. Jokic is a big dude, and that swipe that he did, and this is kind of the thing I defended the league giving him a flagrant at least for it. He has some big ass hands, and his hands are heavy. Mm. Like I'm saying, country strong guys. Brett Favre can go out and probably play quarterback right now and still have the same rocket. Country strong. That strength of pulling hay and fighting cows and chasing lions and away from you. That's not something you want to underestimate. Those people are not somebody you want to be trifled with. So let's not play that game. But I know Devin Booker, raised in Grand Rapids, spent his most of his high school career in Mississippi. He shows us that he's got that Mississippi-ness to him. So he's not somebody to trifle with either. But I don't know. I don't know if I want to run up on Jokic, in which I think Devin Booker knew that too. He just wanted to make sure he defended his teammates, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's all that was.
Yeah, all right, and I appreciate that. But he probably also looked at Jokic and was like, I ain't trying to fuck this big mouth.
Jay, get over here. Crowder.
Get him. Crowder. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. Put a bow on it. Jimmy, there's an article that came out today. All right. That from The Athletic, Tim Cato and Sam Amick. Mm-hmm. This was basically what they said. Inside the Mavericks front office, Mark Cuban's shadow GM is causing a rift with Luka Doncic. So, in this article, I'm going to give you guys just kind of a synopsis on it. Mm-hmm. It's basically saying that Mark Cuban hired a guy to be their quantitative analytics and development coach, a.k.a. it felt like a co-GM. Haralabos Vulgaris.
Yes.
Is the name. I think they call him Bob. And
so that's his name, what they call him, Bob.
Bob.
All
right. So Bob is supposedly I'll go by his last name. We'll just go by Vulgaris. He is infamous for having a little bit more control than people think he should. And he's done a few things that have been timelined that has shown that he's frustrated Luka Doncic. Like one time he kind of gave the motion like to calm down piece, and Luka looked at him and screamed out, "Don't tell me to bleep and calm down." Mm-hmm. In which I don't think he was telling it to Luka. I think he was telling it to the team in general. And I'm correct based upon that. The guy never showed up to another game again for the rest of the season. But he has a lot more backdoor power that people don't realize. Like there was another portion of this article they were talking about how before the draft, he basically made the two selections for them, and the scouts didn't even know that he was making these picks. So overall, and now, of course, coming full circle, Mark Cuban is saying this is all bullshit, which is even more funny that Mark Cuban thinks that people inside of his offices ain't snitching, even though Mark Cuban does have a great system to where everyone has to put their phones on the table and they cannot leak their pick out to Adrian Wojnarowski before they actually make the selection. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty interesting. But my point behind all of this is, and with the synopsis, is that Luka ain't happy. And so the question is it fair or unfair to say that Luka might ask to get out of Dallas?
I would say that is fair. I think we've seen just how impactful these relationships. I mean, working in an organization, doing great things, it's all about relationships. It's all about the culture. The culture, in a sense, is defined by those relationships, or maybe vice versa. Mm-hmm. So in this Dallas organization, if you have a rift between, I call him the shadow GM, Vulgaris,
yes,
the shadow GM
Vulgaris,
and your star player, who's not only a star player, but could very well be the face of the NBA in about 3 to 4 years, that is problematic, because this could represent someone who your superstar player does not feel comfortable working with, someone they feel like they can't trust. And whenever a star feels like they don't like the person that they work with, who's in a high-ranking position, whose decisions affect their ability to do what they do on the court or on the field to the best of their ability, and it's somebody who, like I said, I guess you can't trust, then that is problematic. It's something that can be underestimated. So I see a parallel to this in a way between what's going on in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers and the GM Brian Gutekunst. That part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers so far doesn't want to be there and hasn't been there is because of his lack of trust and his damaged relationship.
Yeah, he kind of said
Brian
that.
Gutekunst. Yeah, so I see this as the exact same thing, but I think that this has a very easy fix. Well, it's not easy in theory and on paper. It's easy, but actualizing it is not going to be easy. Regardless of how he feels about this shadow GM or the rift that this might be causing within the front office organization of the Mavericks, I think that this is all solved if Luka Doncic gets a number 2 that pushes Kristaps Porzingis down to number 3 or off the team, because I've also seen a report where he and Kristaps don't have good chemistry both on the court and off the court. So this whole thing gets swept away if this offseason, this shadow GM, Vulgaris, can get him a legitimate number 2 by hook or by crook, by trading, it won't be through the draft because that would take too much time to develop. And Luka wants to win right now. Yes, he's 22, but he is ready to win right now. So regardless of what they feel about each other, this all goes away with that. I have some candidates who might be possible number 2 replacements for the Mavericks team that they could take a look at. And if he's able to get one of those, that fixes this somewhat, mostly. But this, it's articles like this and it's things like this that, when we look back on why this relationship ended and why this star player doesn't finish their career in a certain location, we'll look back on something like this, and this could be the beginning of that.
Okay.
Yeah. You have this look on your face. Can't help because I'm sitting 4 feet away from you. So
right.
Was it the part where I said, was it the legitimate number 2 part, getting him one of those and that will fix this entire thing, or was it something else?
I don't think it's fair to say that Luka's going to ask to get out. So his rookie extension's coming up.
Yeah.
They're going to give him the most money.
Right.
If he doesn't take it, he will be a restricted free agent. And whoever gives him the most money, the Mavericks will definitely take him at a discount and snatch him back up. He's not leaving Dallas.
Right.
He can try to proclaim anything he wants in this era of player mobility and establishment. If you got that many years left on your contract, you're not going anywhere. The closest thing we've had to a player get traded because they wanted to be traded and they had years on their contract is James Harden. And that's the only reason why. Because James turned down $50 million a year. He turned down $50 million a year. Mm-hmm. That told the owner he's going to walk. And if he walks, I can't let him walk away like that. Luka? Mm-hmm. Damian Lillard? Mm-hmm. Nah, y'all got 4 years. So you can make the choice of not playing and they don't have to pay you. Or you play and you just wait till your contract is up. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have enough time or leverage to even try to get out of Dallas. Mm-hmm. But with that, them getting him a solid number 2, there's only one way they're going to do that. They got to get rid of Donnie Nelson and need to get rid of Vulgaris.
Donnie Nelson?
Yes, Donnie Nelson.
What has he done to anybody?
Donnie Nelson is the president of basketball operations. Yes. What has he done since he's been there the last 10 years? Yeah, right, exactly. He hasn't done anything.
Well, besides trading up to get Luka?
Besides, flip-flopping spots to get Luka.
Fair enough.
I think that was probably more of a Cuban piece. They drafted Trae Young, which I'm trying to figure out why they drafted Trae Young. But anyway, my point, which I probably just got the picks flip-flopped. I can look that up, but why would I look that up right now? We're talking about this. Their problem is Donnie Nelson. They need to go ahead and move on from their president of basketball operations, move on from this shadow GM. They need to bring in some new experts. They need to bring in some new blood. They also need to go ahead and move. Well, you could probably keep Rick Carlisle, but the question you have to ask yourself, let me pull all that back. My bad. I'm going to pull everything I just said back.
Okay.
Mark Cuban needs to walk up to Luka Doncic. Here's the blank check. Well, actually, here's the check for that max extension I'm going to give you. Who do you want to be your coach? Who do you want to be the GM? I will hire whoever you want me to because I need to keep you here in Dallas. That will keep us relevant. You want me to trade Kristaps Porzingis for a bag of potato chips? I will gladly ship him out for a bag of potato chips. I'll take back a bad salary just so we can find you another number 2.
Well, you know what? I always say the empire always strikes back. So in an era of player mobility where players who are unhappy use their leverage in order to get to a happier place, that is the antidote to that, is not only giving them the type of money that they want, but allowing them to have personnel decisions, which if you notice more and more, especially in the NFL, players are wanting more. They're wanting more input, which
quarterbacks are wanting more input.
Yeah. Which essentially leads to more control over those front office and on the field personnel decisions. So that is the answer to that. So I agree that that's what he would do. I think that could work. I do think getting rid of the shadow GM, and I don't think Donnie Nelson is a problem. I think that that article focused on Voulgaris as being the main part of the problem in terms of his relationship with Luka. So maybe getting rid of him would help to fix this. But nobody is unmovable. Now, if I'm Luka and you're staring at a 5-year, $200 million contract, which you'll be eligible for because of the All-NBA team, so $40 million per, if my math is correct. So he's definitely going to sign that. I mean, because you just have to.
You're not stupid.
Yeah, but still in the era of player mobility, haven't we seen players with really large contracts like that get moved who make nearly $40 million a year because we didn't think it could happen with Westbrook and his contract? He got moved. We didn't think anybody would take up CP3's contract. 2 teams did. And we didn't think anybody would move John Wall's contract. He got moved, albeit that was for Westbrook. So just exchanging one for another. But still, those guys can move.
No, I'm not saying that they can't be moved.
Yeah.
Dallas is not trading Luka Doncic. That would be 1, idiotic. 2, it would be stupid. And 3, it'd be freaking dumb. They're not going to trade Luka Doncic. And that's the thing about it. Luka has no leg to stand on. This is what Luka can do. If Luka wants to get out of Dallas, he needs to go back home. Literally put a for sale sign similar to the Deshaun Watson situation and every other. Pull a Carson Palmer. Put your sign out in front of your house and say, I'm just not going to come back. Go back overseas and play basketball there. Not even come back here. Period. Because that's the thing. He's not. I repeat, he is not going to get traded out of Dallas because he does not have any leverage. Now, when it comes to those players you're talking about, the only reason why those moves happened is because all of those teams were trying to shift things around. They all needed a change. Houston got rid of Chris Paul because him and James Harden didn't work out. So they thought that Westbrook, because their contracts are the same, and Chris Paul was falling apart, it would work. They could send them for each other. And then when they realized that the Harden thing wasn't going to work out, Harden was like, I'm not signing this $50 million a year extension, which is still preposterous to me, but also told me that dude was serious. Yeah. He literally put a sign in front of his house and said, hey, when my contract's up, I'm walking away.
Right.
They realized we have to take something for him. We cannot just we can't let him walk away. We cannot let every team in the NBA saw what happened to Oklahoma City with Kevin Durant and said they will not let that happen to them if they can avoid it. That's the reason why all this is happening. Because Oklahoma City was like, you know what? We'll trust our process. If it works, he'll stay. If it doesn't, he doesn't, and we'll figure it out from there. Every other team said, oh, that hell no, that ain't happening to us. We're not going to let that happen to us. So that's why the Chris Paul trade for Westbrook happened, and that's why the Westbrook trade happened for John Wall. That was a swap of contracts. Like you said, it was all the same money. Right. It's not like the question is who is going to trade for Luka and who is Dallas going to get back that they would actually want.
I mean, you go through a number of scenarios for that. I mean, it can happen.
You got to look at the money. You got to look at 2 things: the money and the talent.
Who else? It's not easy. It would take time, but it can happen. I'm not saying he's going to do that at the end of this offseason or the next, but eventually, if this guy stays and the relationship doesn't get better and he doesn't get a legitimate number 2, yes, he will.
In 6 years, I agree with you. But guess what? That's when he can say, I will be an unrestricted free agent after this season, and I'm going to walk. He has the leverage at that point. I'm just saying today, This offseason, zero.
Yeah. No, not this offseason. But do you?
No,
agree
future, yes.
But do you agree with me that if they get him a legitimate number 2, I got some names here I want to give to you. If
Okay,
they get
give
him
it to
a
me.
legitimate number 2, that fixes everything.
No, it doesn't fix everything, but I think that that will pacify some things.
What doesn't that fix though? If he gets a legitimate number 2 that can get him past the Clippers next season,
does it get him to the NBA Finals?
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's the piece. Luka's here to win. A lot of these players were initially here to make money.
Yeah.
They're making stupid money now. So at this point, they only care about chips. That's the only thing that matters. Mainly because fans have treated it as that you can't be great if you don't win championships, which is like the stupidest thing in the world as well.
Okay, all right. So never mind the logistics of each one of these. What I want to know is if they got this particular individual, would this fix or pacify most of what's going on in Dallas between Luka and the front office?
Give it
all
to
right,
me.
So give your name. All right, Bradley Beal. Would that fix it?
That could pacify some things.
I had 2 on here, but I'm not going to mention those. Jaylen Brown, who you've been trying to get traded out of Boston for like a year and a half.
Yeah, I have.
Brown.
I think that could help. Yeah.
Okay. Buddy Hield.
I think a change of environment would make Buddy into a different player.
He's not
and he can shoot.
He's not happy in Sacramento.
Oh, no,
and
no.
he's on I think his contract was 4 years, $94 million.
Yeah,
which
he was also
cheap.
booty. He was also booty last year or so. But at the same time, I think being unhappy in Sacramento.
Okay.
They need to move Sacramento to Seattle, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, all right, last one, DeMar DeRozan.
But he'll be available. They can actually get him. I think he's a free agent.
Is he?
I think he'll be a free agent this year. I have to look that. Let me verify. I think he's going to be free agent range at least. He can get a bucket.
If not, he is very close. He's got to be very close.
He can get a bucket.
Yeah.
He can definitely get a bucket.
He's
so
a legitimate number 2 to a Luka number 1.
Oh yeah, this is his last year on contract.
Coming up or already?
We're already.
So he's a
free agent. He's a free agent this year. Yeah.
He might be the most, outside of Kawhi Leonard, who everyone pretty much expects to stay in LA, well, depending upon what happens in the series, he might be the most prized free agent that's going to be out. Everybody's going to want DeMar DeRozan. Everyone who's got the space, who is a DeMar DeRozan away from at least getting to their conference finals, I mean, he's going to make a killing.
Yep, somebody's
put
going
them
to
in a
pay
bidding war against each other.
See, so, hey, I could totally see DeMar going to LA and being a Laker.
He's from LA.
That's what I'm saying. I can see him in LA with the Lakers, and I bet the Clippers better get on the phone and call that man. They better beg for his services, beg for some sort of a sign and trade deal or something.
It's all about who already knew this ahead of time, which should have been everybody, and who's been nurturing that relationship. We know LeBron James is a master at this, and I guess to some degree Draymond Green, right?
Yep.
In Golden State, nurturing relationships 1 or 2 years leading to that player being an unrestricted free agent.
Oh man, we gotta have a whole segment and show talking about the
DeMar
free
DeRozan
agency, because I
sweepstakes.
love the DeRozan sweepstakes idea.
Yeah.
Because he can get a bucket. He may not be the greatest, but he can do some things that
Yes,
you
he can.
need
Yes, he can.
on the offensive side, and that's been proven. So, okay, Jimmy. So what's Hey, room floor. What you got for me?
Editing room floor. Mainly this, Jay. All right, so the new Space Jam 2 or Space Jam Legacy trailer came out, starring LeBron James. Came out 5 days ago.
Another one, yeah.
Yeah. The follow-up to MJ's Space Jam 1990, what?
4,
1994,
5, something like that. 4, 3, 4.
Yeah.
2, 8.
Iconic movie in my opinion, and in the opinions of a lot of people. So now that this movie is coming out, I believe next month in July. 2 questions. First of all, do you believe that this film starring LeBron James is going to flop?
No, it won't. They have way too much going behind them. I was listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones. He had his Foxworth Friday with Dominique Foxworth, and the one thing they mentioned is that there's a lot of people nostalgic wise that love Space Jam. They are introducing their children right now to Space Jam, and they're going to take their children to go see Space Jam 2. They've already got a built-in fan base and Looney Tunes, so they got a built-in fan base. They're going to bring all those people in there, so that there's no way this flops.
It's perfect. And then you make Space Jam 3 in about, now this one would be like 25, 26 years from its predecessor, but in about 12 to 15 years, you make Space Jam 3 with Zion Williamson and just keep it going.
I really hope they don't do that. He's got to be a Monstar.
What? He can't be the star and the monster.
Have you seen his face?
What does that mean? You know what?
Next.
No, we're still on this. I don't think it'll flop. They put $150 million into this film, and this is a big part of the reason why LeBron James came to LA for this very reason.
Oh, yeah.
So he's got to be able to show that he can carry this film, carry a film like this. So I think that in order for them to really turn a profit, it has to make over $500 million, which still somewhat, maybe towards the end of it, but still somewhat in a pandemic era. That may not be the easiest to do, but
it's going to be very easy.
But,
Jimmy, you invested in AMC stock, didn't you?
But yes,
everybody and their mama's going to start going to the movies again because they want to get the hell up out the house.
Yep.
Perfect timing.
But I mean, I think it's that, and it's going to be on the streaming service as well, HBO Max. I think.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, Warner Brothers. So yeah, I think it'll make that. It'll be successful. But I think one thing that this film has to have in order to be iconic, like the MJ film is you got to have a really, really good soundtrack. Like you can't.
It's got to be iconic.
You can't have a bunch of songs in there that are just forgettable. Nobody cares.
Yeah, because every song on the Space Jam
pretty much
album is iconic.
And pretty much all of them were in the movie. So that's one thing that they've got to do.
Yep.
But I mean, Don Cheadle is always a W, so he's the villain in this. So you definitely got that going for you. And it's produced by Ryan Coogler. So we'll talk more about that some other time. All right, so last thing, unsigned running back Le'Veon Bell, who 4 or 5 years ago might have been the best running back in football.
Oh yeah, the Steph Curry of running backs.
Yeah, Steph Curry running back tweeted recently about Andy Reid that I'm paraphrasing here, that he would rather retire than play for Andy Reid again.
Yeah, it was a comment on an Instagram post. Somebody asked him about coming back or playing with the Chiefs, and he said that I would retire before I would never play for Andy Reid again. I would retire first.
Now, he has since apologized for saying that publicly.
Yes.
Even though it's still true to how he feels. Yes. But given that he's still unsigned and we're about a month and a half away from training camp's beginning, have we seen the last of Le'Veon Bell in an NFL jersey?
Nah, somebody's going to pick him up. I think he's still serviceable. The mistake he made was going to go try to get a ring. And in a situation where it obviously didn't work out. And I guess the thing is that Andy Reid kind of clapped back that, I mean, look at the numbers. There's a reason why you didn't play. And it's probably what he said to Le'Veon. I'm not playing you because you're really not good for what we're trying to do. And if that's the case, and Le'Veon was mad about that, I mean, I get that he didn't like the approach. Let me put it to you like this. Everybody's saying that, if you don't like Andy Reid, then this is a you problem. Andy Reid's probably the greatest and sweetest guy in the world. Somebody hates his guts.
Oh, yeah.
Period. And it might not be just Le'Veon Bell. So that's just kind of the way it is. He may have rubbed people the wrong way with his approach. It happens. So I don't disagree with what Le'Veon said, but at the same time, hey man, just coach say something that you don't like, just move along.
Well, I mean, there are only two directions he can go. You can either, if you really want revenge against Andy Reid, go join the Bills, who need a running back, who need another running back, or go join the Ravens, or go join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and win you a ring, for sure.
Well, hey, there you go. That it?
That's it.
All right.
Le'Veon Bell.
That's funny. All right, well, we appreciate y'all joining us as usual here on Unfair Sports, where, of course, we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. Make sure you check us out and share us, because sharing is caring. And while you're there, rate us and review us and give us 5 stars. You think we deserve it? Meh. Give us 5 anyway. Gifted. So, for Mike, Bob, and Wendy, thank you so much for doing your thing. And for my co-host, Jimmy, make sure you check us out later this week. We'll have some more episodes up. Hit the YouTube page up, unfair-sports.com. Subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Tell your mama to subscribe because she loves seeing my face. And tell her to make some sweet potato pies. But besides that, hit us up on the Unfair fan line, 430-901-1906. And give us your strongest opinions. Titans fans, leave me some messages. We want all the hate that you got. And with that, we will chop it up with you all in a couple of days.
Peace.